much better about getting everyone quiet. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tammy Warshawski, and I'm Director of Advancement at Schechter. And it is my honor and privilege to welcome you here this evening to hear Schechter alumna and current parent, Deborah Ben Aderet, share her firsthand account of events on October 7th. I just returned from Israel on Friday on a North Suburban Synagogue Bethel volunteer mission, and I was fortunate to be on that mission with Deborah's father, David. Where are you? And I continue to be inspired by the strength and the resilience of Israelis like Deborah. I'll share a brief part of her bio that we included in the invitation to tonight's program. Deborah grew up in Highland Park and attended Schechter and Camp Ramon, Wisconsin. As an adult, she was an active member of AIPAC, AZM, and other pro-Israel organizations. In 2012, at the age of 34, Deborah quit her job at Chicago's Merchandise Mart, sold her car, rented out her Lakeview condo, and made Aliyah with her 2 cats. A year after making Aliyah, she met the Israeli man who would become her husband. She left Tel Aviv and moved with him to the southern city of Ashkelon. David and her husband built a home in Kibbutz Zikim, about 2 miles north of the Gaza border. She and her family lived there until October 8th, 2023. Deborah is doing as much hasbara, did I say that right? Explaining and interviews as she can. She's an advocate for Israel and is a moderator in the Facebook group Life on the Border with Gaza, things most people don't know, but they should. Her goal now, while living in the States, is to use her personal experiences to educate people about the realities in Israel and the truth about Hamas and their atrocities, and to fight the growing anti-Semitism the world now faces. Here now is Deborah Ben Aderet.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. Tell me if you can't hear me. You have to come close. So first, I want to say, thank you for being here. That's first. Second, I want to say, speaking is not my profession. I'm not a historian. I'm not a politician. I'm not a military analyst. It feels like it's becoming my profession because I'm speaking since I've been here, and it just feels very important to me. It feels like my calling while I'm here. So thank you guys for coming. I know I'm speaking to an audience that is already pretty educated on the topic. Most of you, maybe all of you, have been to Israel and experienced it, and I'm sure you have family and everything. So I always change the talk a little bit depending on the audience. I was on college campuses last week, and I had a lot more educational stuff that I'm not going to do. I'm going to share with you my personal experience, and you'll see as we go. So, I get a question, a very common question, why would you live on the Gaza border? Which isn't the question is, it's fair. I did not have the goal of let's make Aliyah and live on the Gaza border. Like, there aren't really any Americans that I know of who do that. I know one. There aren't very many. I made Aliyah to Tel Aviv, and I met my husband who was working, he has a PhD in engineering, and he was working in Sderot. He grew up in Ashkelon, and when we were dating, he was renting in Zikim, like a small, house. And we moved to Ashkelon, and we lived in that house through the Protective Edge War. I was 8 months pregnant with my first, and spending most of that war in the mamad, in the safe room. And after she was born, a little while later, he came home one day and said, they're building in the Harchava of Zikim. The Harchava is the extension, and the kibbutz opened up land for new families to come in and build. And he said, let's go build there, because, it's gorgeous and I love it, but we also get a tax break and we can afford to build a whole new beautiful home. And in Ashkelon, we couldn't even afford to replace the windows in our falling apart house. So after living through Protective Edge, I thought, okay, what's the difference? It's only 10 more minutes south. There's a big difference. But to answer the question of why would you live there, I mean, for those of you who don't know, if you want to take a peek at the maps, the red dot is Kibbutz Zikim. It's kind of hard to see the red dot, but if you see Gaza on the left, it's the dot just above Gaza. So we're about 1.5 miles north of the Gaza border and a little south of Ashkelon. And we have one of the most, if not the most gorgeous beaches in Ashkelon, in Israel, that the secret's kind of out. It used to be a little more secluded, and now people come in from Beersheba and everywhere to come to our beach, but a gorgeous beach. This is one shot of our kibbutz, and this is our backyard. And we built this house from scratch. This is how foliage grows beautifully and quickly in Israel. This is just about 6 or 7 years old. Now, this is a view looking down at our house from our security road that goes here up behind the Bougainvillea. We have a security road that goes all around the kibbutz, where a security guy drives at night to check on things. On the other side of this road that goes around is a barbed wire fence. I mean, all kibbutzim and moshavim in the area, if not all of Israel, have a barbed wire fence and a gate. So this will come up in a few minutes in my talk. Just remember this picture here. This is the front of our house. These are my girls at the Zikim beach about 2 years ago. A friend of mine got we were with my friends. One of these photos came up on her Facebook memories, and she sent it to me 2 days ago and said, feels like a different life, huh? And it does. This is a gorgeous sunset over the extension of our kibbutz. So first I'm going to talk a little bit about just like life on the border, because it's not like October 7th is the first time we suffered from Hamas. When my husband said, hey, let's live in Zikim, and my gut was like, no way. He said, you know, Hamas is really annoying, and they send rockets, but they're just annoying. They can't do real damage. We really have to be worried about Hezbollah up north. Hamas sends rockets now and then, and we all have safe rooms. And now, you know, he says he never would have thought. So I said, okay, let's do it. So we built this gorgeous house. It's my girls' bedroom. Now they're 7 and 9. They both had birthdays here since we've been here. Their bedroom is the mamad. They have a bunk bed in there. And the mamad is the safe room. And it looks like any other room, but it's reinforced with like cinder block. And after you close the glass windows, there's metal windows on the outside, like clunk, that really close. For when you have a rocket day, because growing up in Chicago, we had snow days, but on the Gaza envelope, you have rocket days. The door does not lock, and we'll get to that later. The door is also reinforced steel, but it doesn't lock. It's not made for a ground invasion. So my girls slept in this room, and we would have rockets now and then. Homeland Security will show you a map of Israel, and they'll show you rings around the Gaza envelope going into Israel to show you how many seconds everyone gets depending on where you live. So they'll tell you the Gaza envelope, which includes our kibbutz, gets about 15. We've never had 15 seconds. We have 5 to 8 seconds. And when we built this house, we never heard the warning loud enough. So other places in Israel have a siren, and when you live this close to the Gaza border, there's a recorded lady going, Tseva Adom, Tseva Adom. It's never loud enough, even with our window cracked open. If you're watching TV or having a conversation or running the kettle, you're not going to hear it. So a few years ago, our kibbutz passed out a beeper, and you just plug it in the wall, and the beeper would go off. I want to say even a second or two before an app on the phone would go off, or before you would hear that Tseva Adom. That was really loud, and we'd hear it. I don't know who, for some reason, 1 or 2 years ago, they decided to discontinue the beeper. And I was like the only person, you know, we have a WhatsApp group for the kibbutz. There's only 2 Americans, and I like to pick my battles and not be that annoying American, you know. So, But I wrote in there, does anyone understand why we don't have beeper? What? No, they did away with it. Just download the app. So we have the same rocket app probably you guys have. So that's what we were having. So we have rockets now and then, and we have rocket days. And a few years ago, about 3 Mays ago, I think, there was a war where we were evacuated. And when we went out to my car, oops, can't take my car, the back windshield was blown out from shrapnel, piece this big. So thank God it didn't hit a person. I mean, that's why when they say stay in the mamad, don't be cool and go out and videotape the rockets, because the shrapnel is just as dangerous. And rockets landed in our kibbutz. Luckily, everyone survived, but it did a lot of damage. So we took my husband's car and evacuated for 2 weeks. That was a few years ago. So evacuating wasn't new. But I want to add a few more things. This started getting more and more frequent. And you would not see that in the news here. You wouldn't even always see it in the news in Israel, because it's just the south. If a rocket didn't go to Jerusalem or Tel Aviv and just landed on us, it doesn't make the news. But this is how we live. We would have days where the security would send us a message and say, Hamas is feeling kind of feisty. The gun, the daycare, they're not going to go on a tiyul today. They're going to stay in the building. Hamas is feeling a little feisty. Stay close to a mamad today. Or don't go to the highest part of the kibbutz because it's an eye shot of Gaza and there could be snipers. So now I'm in my community, but I shouldn't take that road when I'm going to the market. Like, what? Then Hamas started sending incendiary balloons in the last few years, which you also don't hear much about. They literally would send Mickey Mouse balloons and I love you balloons, targeting our children. My girls were about 5 and 3 at the time, and I had to teach them to stay away from balloons. You're in the kibbutz and there's a birthday party going on. Balloons have a whole new meaning to us now. I drove them through the kibbutz once and a stray balloon was bouncing and I slammed on the brakes like I'm not going to drive past this balloon. It became common, especially in the summer when the land and the fields are so dry. I'd be driving the girls to a chug, to an activity, and there's just fires around us. And they would say, Ima, mishu oseh ala esh. Mom, someone's barbecuing. And I would just say, Ken, nachon. Because I'm not going to teach a 3 and a 5-year-old that terrorists on the other side are throwing, so this became like a common thing. They killed thousands and thousands of animals. Where's the animal rights? Once they attached an explosive to an eagle and sent it over. Where's PETA? No, you don't see this anywhere. So this is something we began living with. Then, a few years ago, and if you were at my first talk, I would have ended this by saying, and I don't know why they were doing that, but now I'm going to tell you why. Then they started burning tires on the border every Friday, and we would wake up, and I'd say, it's a tire day. Close the windows. Girls, you can't go to the park today. Don't breathe. Hold your breath. We're going to go from the house to the car. And I would say to my husband, why are we letting them do this? Why isn't the IDF doing something? My husband's not in the IDF. He's just Israeli. I want him to have all the answers. So, he'd say, I don't know, they're doing it on their side. So what can we do? We can't have the soldiers shoot into Gaza because there's annoying black smoke. Well, what I only learned a few months ago, between my first talk and now, is that they were doing that because the smoke was so thick, you can't see through it. And they spent the last few years burying explosives along the Gaza border in preparation for October 7th. So I'm in my community going about life and taking the girls to school, and they're burying explosives, and nobody knows. And I won't get into the IDF intelligence. I don't know why we didn't know. So, full disclosure, in the last few years, I started talking with my husband about moving further center. I'd say 80% because of everything we're suffering on the Gaza border, but 20% to be a little closer to more culture and more Americans. There's 2 of us in our kibbutz. The other man is retired in his 80s, and just me and him. And so we had been thinking about moving a little further north, center. And October 6th, I actually had a conversation with a broker who said, come tomorrow, Motzei Shabbat, I have a great place. So October 6th. My parents were visiting for Sukkot, and they were supposed to fly out on Sunday. And rockets aren't new for them either, because I've been living on the border for 7-8 years. They've lived through rockets with us. When we built our house, we built the whole basement as a safe room. So, like, when the next war happens, we won't have to evacuate and go up north. We'll go, like, stay in the basement. We made a bedroom, a bathroom. We put in plumbing for a kitchenette, which we didn't get to, and then it's my girls' play area. So this is also where my parents stay. Now let that sink in though for a minute, that when we built our house, we said, let's make the basement a bomb shelter. Like who else has to, like who does that occur to? Just the crazy, people that bunker away for the apocalypse or something. So anyhow, my parents were downstairs and 6:30, we went to sleep like any other night. That's the last night I slept in my own bed. We all went to sleep. And around 6:30 in the morning, there was an explosion, and that's not uncommon. So by the time I heard the explosion, I just rolled over to go back to bed because it's too late. I missed the Tseva Adom. And if I hear an explosion, it's already hit, or it's already been intercepted by the Iron Dome. There's just ein ma lasot, as they said, nothing to do about it now. And I started turning over to go back to sleep. My husband had fallen asleep on the couch, and so there was another one, and he ran in, Deb, Tseva Adom. And I'm like, okay. Went into my girls' room, without my pants, without my contacts, just my glasses. I don't think I had my shoe. I thought it's going to be a few minutes. And I went in, and my girls started stirring. They used to sleep through it better. Your whole house shakes from where we live. It's loud. And we told them, just go back to sleep. It's just rockets. I mean, let that sink in, too. It's just rockets. Go back to sleep. It's just booms. It's just booms. Now, my girls know that we have this. They don't know the full extent, but they know that our neighbors don't like us and they send rockets. And my sweet 9-year-old said, Ima, can't we just Zoom with Hamas and tell them that we don't want to be fighting? Anyway, so my girls started waking up and the explosions, the alerts kept happening, and we realized it's going to be another rocket day, I think. At one point, my dad came up and said, how long do we have to stay down there? And we said, it's just too frequent. Just stay down and we'll update you. So none of us had gone to the bathroom. I don't have my pants. Like, in 5 to 8 seconds, you can't leave to go to the bathroom or look for you can't leave the room. There's not enough time. I'll get to it, but when we got to Jerusalem and there was 2 minutes, I'm like, this is heaven. You could put your shoes on and finish in the bathroom and walk down 7 flights of stairs. But there's no time to do anything. So this is how it was for about the next, hour. And we were only getting rocket alerts on our phone because there's no beeper and we can't hear the app. So we decided we just have to stay in here. My parents just have to stay downstairs. We'll just stay in the safe room. And we decided it's a rocket day, at which point we brought in the TV for the girls and gave them a movie and tried to drown out the explosions a little bit. And then my husband shows me, which you've all probably seen, the white truck in Sderot that Hamas stole and drove around Sderot. And I was like, what the? And I didn't want to alert the girls. We're in this tiny room with them, but my husband and I are trying to share information. And then we started getting text messages from our kibbutz security that said, Zikim is secure, but there have been ground infiltrations, so lock up the house. So we went around and started closing the tree seam, the electrical blinds, because most of our house is like glass doors with the blinds behind it. We turned off the air conditioning because that'll show you someone's home because the big machine outside, runs the air. And we have this one window in the kitchen, My past life, as Tammy said, was in the merchandise mart, and we built this house from scratch, and it was like my joy building this house. I picked out every door handle. And when we built the house, I wanted a little window in the kitchen so that when I'm working in the kitchen and someone knocks on the door, I see who's at the door, like that window. And my husband's like, is this an American thing? What? Okay, add a window, I did all the designing. Well, that window doesn't have any tree seam or anything. And there's like this little part of me that was like, someone could just climb in that window. No, everyone thought, that's a crazy person talking. Well, here's October 7th, and now I thought someone can climb in that window. He went and he butcher papered over it, which won't keep someone out, but it'll make it look dark, or maybe like we're not home, even though the cars are in the driveway. And he laid out kitchen knives on the counter because my husband was an engineer and was never called into Miluim, the reserves, because it's just not the profession that you get called in. We don't have a gun. He laid out kitchen knives. We reiterated to my parents not to come up. And I don't know, maybe an hour went by, and we lost all cell phone reception and all phone service. So now I don't have a Rocket app. I don't have any connection to the outside world. And I'm just sitting in the bomb shelter. And then we hear do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Not normal, way too close. And my husband and I looked at each other like, what the, And we live right near the army base, so if it goes Ocean Army Base Kibbutz, and we're used to hearing practicing. This was way too close. I didn't know if it was us. I didn't know if it was that. We didn't know what was happening. You all knew more than we did, okay? So we lost all connection to the outside world. My husband snuck out now and then to watch TV, because that was like the only place he could get updates, but he couldn't come back in the safe room and really tell me what's happening, because we don't want to upset the girls. So my sister, who was 8 months pregnant at the time, was here. She knew what we survived before we knew what we survived. So I'll get to that in a minute. I'll tell you what we went through, and then I'll tell you what happened in Zikim. So we went to sleep. I mean, as much as you can sleep with this going on and not knowing what is going on. The girls went to sleep. My husband and I put mattresses on the floor. The rockets continued. No more machine gun, but the rockets continued. At one point, we thought we were hit. There was the loudest crash, and when my husband went outside to check, there was a hit so close to us that the big metal plate inside on the other side of the vertical blinds had fallen in, did a little damage in the kitchen, and we think it hurt my cat because she was limping for a while after that. So that was very scary. Anyway, so we went to sleep, or before we went to sleep, it was about 8:30. The girls were just falling asleep. 3 Shabak members knock on our door. The Shabak is a section of the Army Intelligence Strategic, and they're dressed in black with bulletproof vests, and they have machine guns, and it's like opening the door like you feel like you're in a movie. And they said, "Do you want to evacuate? We're helping anyone who wants to evacuate." But my husband and I looked at each other like, where are we going to go? So when there's a war and communities have to be evacuated, the government provides like specific areas for specific communities. Like the war before, they sent us up to a beautiful kibbutz near Caesarea, Sdot Yam. Well, this was too early and they didn't have anything organized yet. So if we were going to evacuate, we were going to be on our own. And we decided we're safer here. There's crap going on outside that we don't know what it is. We'll stay here. Everyone's in the mamad because we thought it was really rockets. We didn't know about the ground invasions, and we said we'll stay here. We went to sleep, and in the morning, soldiers came back, and one of them was my husband's nephew, who's in his early 20s, but he was called to Miluim, to the reserves, and he had a big walkie-talkie phone, and he said, "Your sister's on the phone." I was like, how did my sister get UV's Army phone number? This is when social media is great. My sister was she knew what we lived through. I mean, she didn't know we were living. She knew what had happened and was in a total panic that us and her parents were kidnapped or burned alive, or I don't know what, looked all over social media for us, and I don't have a phone, so I couldn't tell anyone I was okay. She called the embassy, she called the consulate, she posted missing person. Somehow my husband has 5 sisters, she got to one of them, who got to another one, who got to my nephew. So we had enough time to tell her, we're okay, we're alive, we're evacuating, mom and dad are fine, everyone's fine, please go on Facebook, tell everyone we're fine. I don't know what we survived, but we survived, we're evacuated. So I told my parents, you just have to come with us. I don't think your flight's gonna go out tomorrow. You can't stay here, and you just come with us. So we all packed up, and I'm packing thinking, how long is it gonna be this time? Because last time it was 2 weeks, and we ran out of socks and underwear. So I packed as much as I could. We have 3 cats, a snake, and a fish tank that we had to that's my daughter's snake, that we had to leave. And luckily, one of my friends, my girlfriend, is in the Kitata Konanut, the emergency squad, and loves animals. So she said she'd come in and feed everybody. But at that point, we just overfed. We couldn't get in touch with anyone, overfed them and left. My husband and parents drove in cars in front of us, and I drove my girls. And we were escorted out of the kibbutz, and there's a long rural road from the kibbutz to the main highway. No stop signs or roundabout key cars or anything. And it's like one lane. And we were in like, you know, fight or flight, and I just was beelining for the highway, not looking around or paying much attention. But at one point, my parents and husband had to swerve around a stopped car, and I swerved around the stopped car, and I saw a huge bullet hole in the windshield. I felt like I was in Fauda, you know, and I just kept driving till I got to the highway. And at which point, when I got to the highway, my phone was like, ding, 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 ding. We got reception back, and I had 300 and something missed messages from people, and news alerts and security alerts. And, you know, I just put on Facebook, like, we're okay, because I didn't have time to write back to people. And when we got to the hotel in Jerusalem, my husband was like, did you see the dead bodies? And I'm like, what? No, thank God, no. I wasn't looking, but no. So there were, you know, dead, luckily terrorist bodies along the road as we evacuated. And it was a terrorist that was killed in the car that I saw, and his body was dragged out, but there wasn't time to collect all these bodies yet. So I started slowly learning what we had lived through. And I really mean slowly, because even like a month or two later, I was getting more information that I didn't know, that I'm sure you might not know, because for sure from media here you wouldn't know, but because, thank God, no one was actually killed in Zikim, it doesn't get that much coverage. But here's what happened. So that early morning, and you know what happened in other kibbutzim, but here's what happened in Zikim. 50 terrorists, 50, tried to infiltrate through our beach on dozens of little tenders, little boats. And there's now been a recording released of like the young IDF staff who was on Marine duty at the time, and you hear their conversation, and they're saying like, who is it? Oh my God, it's terrorists, And they did their best. They killed 41 of the 50 terrorists, blew up their boats, managed to kill them, but 9 still came up through our beach, and there's videos of this now, killed everyone they saw, except for this one Russian-Israeli guy who survived with his 2 dogs by digging a hole and getting inside of it. This is crazy. Whoever wants this link, contact me sometime. It's in Hebrew, but it's unbelievable. There's footage of, you see his head and his dog sticking out, and you see Hamas just running past him like they didn't see him. So except for him, I don't think anyone else survived. The person who took that video didn't survive. The video of the Russian guy with his dogs. Killed everyone they saw. Continued to the army base, where the army wasn't prepared. It was a holiday and Shabbat, 6:30 in the morning. And I won't go into that, but there was a lot of warning from the actual IDF people doing security on the border to the higher-ups, and it was ignored. So they were completely caught off guard. There was a huge shootout in our army base. Hamas took some of their uniforms and wore them, stole an army truck, and remember the picture I said, remember the security road above my house? Approached the other side of that security road, at which point our security staff, now I say staff, we have one paid security guy, but he got word from security at the army base that terrorists were headed to the kibbutz in 30 seconds, or maybe 2 minutes, not long, and in 2 minutes they got miluim, reserves, who we have in our kibbutz, or just regular citizens who are technically retired, but they have guns. And this was our security staff. We had 5 or 7 guys, and we have these little makeshift bomb wall. I can't call it a room. It's not a room. You have to squat down. Looks like this. It has 3 walls, and they're placed all along the security road above the kibbutz, that in case there's a rocket or something, while you're jogging or walking, you crouch in these things. So our security was crouching in these little shelters when this truck approached, and at first they thought it's our side. It's like the intelligence, it's a secret force of our side, and they were going to talk to them. At which point Hamas took out a grenade and threw it at our guys, and had they not been crouching in those walls, there probably would have been casualties. A 35-year-old father of 3 who was volunteering needed surgery because it exploded, and they're leaving some shrapnel in his leg because it's safer that way. He's had a lot of surgeries. And the do-do-do-do-do that we heard was our staff killing the terrorists after they had thrown the grenade. They managed to kill 4 or 5 of the 9. The other 4 or 5 ran off by foot. We know that there were terrorists hiding in bushes weeks after this, we heard. I don't know specifically if those were hiding or those were the ones shot along the road, but while this was all happening, there were hundreds of terrorists just by foot running up the highway, running down our rural road, like trying to get to us. And if it weren't for this security and the security on the beach, we wouldn't be here. There were some 18-year-old teenage boys on the beach that morning fishing, and they're friends with a girl in our kibbutz, and she was very worried about them. And a few hours later, her phone rang, and it was one of them, and she was so excited to answer it. And it was a photo of their slaughtered bodies that Hamas chased them into the bathrooms on the beach, mutilated, not just a gunshot goodbye, like slaughtered them, and then took pictures and sent it to all their contacts. Can you imagine this 18-year-old? And this is common. This was common after, there's tons of stories like this after October 7th. And in Israel and in the kibbutz, it's 1 degree of separation. You know, the grandparents of my friend's child were murdered in Be'eri. It's a miracle, or not a miracle, half our staff that were here. You guys know the other horrible, horrific things that happened on other kibbutzim. And I do want to show a few pictures, and they're graphic, and they're sad, and if you don't want to see, just look away for a minute, and I'll tell you when I'm done. I think it's just really important. Again, I know I'm talking to a crowd that knows, but there are a lot of people denying it, and a lot of people, well, we made it up. Oh yeah, Israel photoshopped burned babies, because that's our agenda. So in the beginning when I started speaking, I thought, well, I don't have to talk to Jews. I have to get to the, I have to get to the non-believing Jews, the non-supportive Jews, the other religions, the students. And then I realized, no, it's just as important to talk to a room of supportive Zionistic Jews, because everyone here knows 100 people, and they know 100 people. And just to hear it firsthand and to see it firsthand. Now, I didn't take these photos, but you might not find them in Google. Israel put out a website, which I also have the link to, about the October 7th massacre. And it's actually not open in Israel. It'll block if your IP is Israel, you can't even view it. Because the government made the decision that it's way too traumatic for Israelis to even see. And they published it for the rest of the world to see. And since I'm in America, I can see it. I took a lot of pictures from there, but a lot of those photos are proudly from Hamas, from TikTok and stuff. I'm going to show a few. If you don't want to look, this is one. Don't look. Here we have a slaughtered family, and you can see it's from Hamas because the title's in Arabic. I don't know what it says. It doesn't matter. So like I was saying, the mamad doors do not lock. And while we were sitting in our mamad, we were getting, before our phone went out, we were getting messages, this is how to lock your mamad door. You need a bar with a this. And I'm like, oh great, for next time, right now, we're not safe, nobody's safe. These doors were not meant for ground infiltrations. This is a child's bedroom. This is a daycare, either in Be'eri or Nerium, I can't remember. Luckily, obviously, children weren't here, but someone was hiding in here and didn't make it. 3-month-old baby shot in the head. This is Be'eri. This image, this one is from Google. This image is just, you can see the Israeli flag down there too. Now, before I play this, there's totally crazy stories about how this wasn't just Hamas, this was some regular Palestinians, and Israel lets them in to work all the time. I mean, Gazans built my house, folks. So when they torched and slaughtered families, I don't remember which kibbutz, but it might have been Berry. There was a kibbutz that you can go to, and you'll see the whole kibbutz is half burned, and there's a house standing. How did this house make it? They literally had a list of families, and there was a young couple whose the wife was very pregnant, and the list, whatever Palestinian was working in this community at the time, told Hamas or his buddies or whoever came in for the attack, don't bother with the, Abrahams. I'm just making it up, because they're never home on Shabbat. Because it's a chiluni, it's a secular kibbutz, there's no Shabbat, they don't celebrate Shabbat there, they're never home on Shabbat, they go to their families, don't waste your time on this house. Well, she was so pregnant and didn't feel well, and they stayed home on that Shabbat, and they survived in that house because the list said they're not home, don't bother with the house. So all these crazy stories are coming out, I'll get to that in a minute, how this isn't just the militant Hamas in their uniform, this was a much bigger operation. So here's one more video. If you don't want to see blood, don't watch.
Now, after 22 settlements were cleansed of murderous Hamas terrorists, we are beginning to understand the extent of the destruction. Hundreds of innocent families who did nothing were slaughtered, raped, and burned inside their homes. We are talking about children and babies, mothers and fathers, grandparents who did nothing to anyone. Hamas is a terrorist Palestinian entity that massacred and murdered more than 1,000 Israeli citizens in one day. Since the Holocaust, there has not been such a massacre. We, the people of Israel, will never forget or forgive.
I have a few more graphic ones until I get to something else that I'm going to continue showing. Well, this isn't graphic, just very sad. Here's cars from the Nova Festival. I think now it's going to get, yeah. There was so much cleanup, body cleanup, that had to be done, and volunteers, and so there's something in Judaism, the reason there is a whole Tzevet staff that cleans up body parts, you're supposed to bury the body with as much of it as you can. And there were so many terribly burned bodies that just burned into the cars. Israel's buried hundreds of cars because they couldn't even separate the bodies from the cars. These are babies. This is what they think was a mother and child embracing before they were burned alive. An adult-sized spine, a child-sized spine remains. So I want to go back for a minute again. I'm not going to get too much into it. But I know I don't have to tell you guys, I think I'm more upset about the war against the ignorance and anti-Semitism than I am about the actual war, because terrorists will be terrorists, but what the heck has gone on with humanity and the confusion between freedom fighters and regular people. And I won't go into it, but what I will go into is that there's proof. It's very difficult to separate Hamas from the regular Gazans at this point. And here we have a picture of regular Gazans who killed. Hamas might have broke down all of the gates and the border fences, but thousands of Palestinians followed after them. So excited. There's recordings. There's been a recording of a kid, late teens or early 20s, calling his dad in Gaza, I killed him, I killed a Jew, and the mom's in the background going, Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar, and he's going, good job, son, good job, son. This is a problem. I mean, we know, but this is part of the reason it's taking so long. Because regular civilians are Hamas. It's been indoctrinated into them. My girls go to Apache, and they do art projects, and they canoe. Gaza kids go to Hamas terror camps, which I'm going to show you in a minute. These are Gazans passing out candy the day after the massacre and celebrating. And I'm going to play this. This was October 8th. Up here, this is a screen. Hamas proudly recorded all of their rapes and murders and beheadings, and they made a compilation movie. How nice, right? They made a compilation movie, and they showed it in Gaza. And I want you to pay attention to the happy cheering from all of the innocent Gazans. There aren't 5 or 6. You got it. But I do want to show this one because, I mean, I'm sure, again, many of you, if not almost all of you, know this, but like, this is a Hamas TikTok video. This is what the first graders or second graders are learning. We've got a big battle here. In Israel, I teach environmental consciousness. My girls would never throw a wrapper on the floor. If I have to think about retraining them now to throw the garbage out the window, it'll never happen. And I'm just using that as an example, like, if this is how you were raised, how do we do this? We take them all and re-brainwash them? I mean, in a good way, recondition them? You guys, I'm very worried. I don't know. This is my last educational one. The next one is kind of entertaining. Sad, but entertaining. I have way more of these when I'm going to college campuses, but you know, I always feel like, don't listen to me. Don't listen to the Jew. Of course, right? The Jew is going to be pro-Israel. Listen to them. So this was from only about a week ago in Gaza. We know if you really look into it, because you won't hear it here, but we know that Hamas is taking the aid. Hamas is attacking aid trucks, and they have all that they need. They just need to not have Hamas. So here are some regular Palestinians. Listen to them, not me.
أنه قرار سلم خلاص معي هبل هذا اللي بيسويه هبل قتل شعبه السنوار قتل شعبه وين العدالة هو هذا الحكم اللي بيحكمنا يا السنوار وهني ابن المسؤول الحمساوي بعمره 20 سنة.
They have to worry for their lives if they're speaking like this on the news.
وابن ولادنا لا يملكوا من الحياة شيء.
حكيت لك إنه حماس دمرت بس شو بتقول؟
هذا شيء أكيد شيء أكيد يعني. طبعا هذا سبب.
وبعدين بالنسبه للمقاومه اللي بتيجي تتخبى بين الناس، ليش تتخبى بين الناس؟ يروح جهنم يتخبى، يعني هذه شهادات من اصحاب
اللي دمروا البلد واللي يا ابو حمد انت اتبع علي. يا عباس يا عباس وين الكهرب وين الغاز؟ وين الكهرب وين الغاز؟ احنا دفعنا ثمن تذكره حماس، احنا دفعنا التذكره لها.
بدي اوجه رسالتي إلى حكومة حماس، حسبي الله عليك، والله يلعنك ويلعن أبوك ويلعن اللي جابك، والله يلعنك يا سنوار، يا ابن الكلب، حسبي الله عليك دمرتنا يا
So, okay, this is my last one, and then I'll wrap it up and take some questions. This one it's like funny, but it's just so sad. I don't know what college campus this is, but it kind of doesn't matter. It kind of just really doesn't matter. There's so much, we know, woke, ignorant, but this one, it almost makes me chuckle, so.
A quick petition to help Hamas free Palestine. You're all in? Alright. Oh yeah, you're in? I just have to read terms and conditions just so you know what you're signing. Okay. By supporting Hamas freeing Palestine, you agree to the following. You agree that every Jew, Christian, and non-Muslim in the world must be slaughtered. I don't know about that one. You endorse making homosexuality punishable by jail or death. Oh no, I don't. You don't agree with that? You believe Iran should use Palestinians as puppets to spread radical jihad and destroy the West? No? No. I'm glad I read the terms of agreement. You support strict Sharia law, which bans women from showing their knees, hair, playing sports in public, not being able to travel without a man's permission. I'm sorry. Not interested? Oh, okay. You want a terrorist group that beheads babies and rapes girls to replace only democracy in the Middle East?
Not sure that's something to support.
So if I sign, I agree with this.
Yes. Baby, no. No? Okay.
Oh no, thank you.
No.
I don't support any of these two things that you just read to me, so then I won't be able to sign this then.
That's fair. Oh, thanks for signing. Yeah, alright.
Okay, sorry, that's it. So, no, there's one more. So, I just will give you a very brief, after 2.5 weeks, we'll get to that in a minute, in Jerusalem, my husband said, and my parents made it back to Chicago later than they were supposed to, but they made it back. And we were debating what to do, and my husband was like, look, take the girls and go back to Highland Park. What are you going to do here in the hotel? We don't know how long this is going to be. And it was a really hard decision, but we did. And we went back to the kibbutz once to pack up, which was a crazy, scary experience as it was. It was literally a war zone, tanks as far as the eye could see, and people weren't just allowed in. You had to present your Teudat Zehut, your proof that you lived in the kibbutz, and it was just filled with soldiers, and there were explosions going off while I was packing, but I packed us up, and my girls and I have been here since the end of October. And amazing how family in Highland Park loaned us their guest house. Another family loaned us a car. And the girls have been very, very happy at Schechter. And my husband and I decided a month or two ago, we're not going to go back before the end of the school year, because even if things are great, that's traumatizing to bring the girls back at the end of and nothing over there where we live is functioning normally. We have half of our community at a hotel, well, not half, like a third at a hotel in Jerusalem, like a third up north somewhere, another third, I'm here, people are scattered at their parents' house, scattered all over. School's not functioning, school's closed. They're doing school at other local places. And I tell the girls that that's what would happen. When they miss the house and they miss the kibbutz, I tell them your friends are not there, school is not there, we're lucky that we're here. And they know, but it's hard. Every day our plan changes. A few weeks ago we had a plan that we were going to take a furnished apartment in the center of Israel. They wanted the lease to start in August. And then we decided we can't do that, because if we commit now to a lease that starts in August and Hezbollah starts a war, I'm not moving back there now in the middle of a war, and then we're stuck with a year lease. So we have like 5 different plans of what we're going to do now, which is basically that we don't have a plan. We do need to leave the house that we're in soon and return the car and get another car. I mean, things are just very fluid and every day kind of different, but I'm incredibly grateful that I'm even here to talk to you guys after so much massacring and genocide. And I remind myself of that all the time. And it kind of sounds like a doom and gloom. So in order to not give you a full doom and gloom, I usually I'm going to take questions, and I usually get someone that says, but I feel so helpless, what can I do, what can I do? And so I don't have all the answers. This is what I'm doing. This is my part. I feel really like this is my part, and this is what I'm doing. I do moderate the Facebook group called Life on the Border with Gaza, the last one, Things Most People Don't Know But Should. I've been moderating this group since 2018. We have 12,000 members, and this is just like for education and for sharing. This is a wonderful group to be in. This is where I'm getting my news from Israel. I'm not watching the news. I'm getting my news here. There's a guy, Dave, who's a retired reporter who lives up near Hezbollah, and he's updating all the time. We also do Zooms where you can talk to some people from Israel. I used to be on the Zoom every week, and now I just can't keep up, but you can talk to people, ask questions, hear what's going on. Sometimes there's professionals. And then I opened my own Facebook page where I just give a little more personal information. And then I know everybody, knows places they can donate. People always ask me that, and I don't like spewing out places that I don't really know where the money is going or who it is. But the top one, Project Aid and Rescue, is a friend of mine, Jeff, who's raised over $500,000 money, not only for equipment in Israel, but also he helps refugees, so that's another good one. And really, guys, I also just feel totally kind of helpless, but I also like to tell my girls that Israel always wins. So I don't think that it will not be the outcome. I just think it's going to take a long time. And then meanwhile, I think we just have to fight the horrible war on the ground here against the ignorance and anti-Semitism and just get the world to realize what's going on. That's kind of all I can say. So I really appreciate you guys coming to hear me. And I want to take questions, but I want to remind you that please, nothing very political or historical. I'm not a military analyst. I'm just a mom who's a Zionist who survived and wants to talk about it. Shira has a microphone if anyone has a question. Ask them now because I can't stay very long after. I see a lot of familiar faces I want to hug, but I got a babysitter at home.
This isn't a question.
Okay.
My husband and I were near Savaro's Pizza. My husband and I were near Savaro's Pizza when it blew up August of '01. Luckily, we turned left instead of right. But that night, you could listen to the Palestinians all celebrating because, and fireworks. They were having
23
really a
years
grand
ago.
old time, which is,
It's West Bank before.
right,
Yeah.
but still.
23 years ago. I know. It's not new. This isn't new. It's glad you guys are okay. It's very worrisome, to say the least.
Thank you. Can you give the address of the website that people can see here in the United States that you cannot see in Israel? Can you say it slowly and whoever wants to will
I
write it down?
I should have gotten a QR code for that one.
We can share it after, we can email it out.
Okay, so let's email it out. I'll look it up and then.
Can I
we'll
say
email it
something
out.
else too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I didn't realize that there were lots of people on the things you want to know from that website. I'm friends with someone from that. I didn't know that there were other people.
Yeah.
I'm friends with Adele Reamer.
Yep. She's the founder. She's not just on it. She's the founder.
Yes, she's from Kibbutz Zikim.
Yeah.
And if you remember that name, Adele, how you would spell Adele, Reamer, Raemer. Her Facebook page, alone and on the website just mentioned, is all about Kibbutz Zikim. And she happens to be the author Gil Troy's cousin. And he's fantastic. And I met her way before October 7th. Because he had her on a Zoom.
Yeah.
And she's so full of information.
Yeah.
Also traveling around to different places.
Right. It's a worthwhile group.
Question?
Yeah. I actually just have a comment, something that I was going to talk to you about after, but I hear you have to go.
Yeah. I'd like to talk to you all.
So I spent Shabbat in Kiryat Gat a few weeks ago with a family that survived near Oz.
Wow.
And I just want to say that it's a lot.
It's a lot.
The other thing that I want to ask is that I'm not hearing a lot of stories, narratives about the caregivers who stayed with folks under this kind of attack and duress and continue to be loyal to them if they survived. Do you know if there's a place where people can go to really see those stories and have them centered?
That is a great question. My in-laws caregiver had only been in Israel for like a week before this happened. She came from India, and my in-laws are from Ashkelon, and they don't have a mamad. So they lived through it and evacuated with us to Jerusalem, and I kept saying, like, what do you think of Israel? I'm so sorry. What a welcome. So that's an amazing question, and I'll have to look into it. If I get information, I'll update Sharon. It can be emailed because I don't know. I did read a story specific to not caregivers, but the workers from Thailand that work in the fields of Zikim, and how they were there on the 7th and were helpful and survived and still want to stay, or the ones that left and came back. Like, very inspiring story. But the caregivers I have not, and that's a great. I'll look into it. And I'm
Over
glad.
here for a question.
Yeah.
I thank you for sharing. My
you.
biggest question is, I know you don't have a plan as of now, and every day is different, but while you've had time to sort of process everything, what has been your view on raising American Israeli children, and your, now having a taste of being back in American culture, good and bad, but how will you sort of, what takeaways, are kind of at the forefront of your mind as you kind of come up with the next steps of raising a family, and whether that is returning or staying here, sort of like what's changed, obviously a lot's changed, but like really what's been like kind of those ruminations in your mind?
That's a very good question, and I have to say first that I was making it a point, except for Corona, to come back here with the girls every summer, to be with my parents, and to be with kids their age speaking English, because it's not like we live in Tel Aviv. They're not getting English anywhere except for at home with me or my 1 or 2 American friends' kids. So I really liked that. I really liked living in Israel, but spending like 5 to 7 weeks here every summer. And to me, that was like a good, and also my husband agreed, like a really nice balance for them. I definitely feel some guilt that, unlike everybody else in my community, I didn't grow up there. I don't have roots there. I didn't need to be there. I chose to raise my children in that kibbutz, and I have some guilt from it. We're traumatized. We also survived the mass shooting in Highland Park, 2 meters away from the victims. So I have guilty feelings, and I'm torn. And I'm totally telling you the truth. I go back and forth. I have moments where I think, let's do another year or 2 here. I have moments where I feel like, God, I really want to go back to doing summers here. I definitely want some combination. I don't ever want it to be this is where we live or this is where we live. I also do try to envision, what are they going to say to me in 10 years that I did take them back here away from their friends and community during this tkufa, during this period? Are they going to thank me and be grateful? Are they going to be upset that I took them away from their community? Because Israel is such a, you grow up with these kids and you go to the army together, and the bonds are really, here too, friendship bonds, but the bonds there are, my husband's friends with people from, so I don't know. I do know, I'll tell you one option that's 98% not on the table. We're not going to go back and live in that house in the kibbutz. And I've started getting that idea into their head when they miss their room or they miss whatever, and I try to explain to them, we make the family, the house doesn't make the family. Look at Ima, I moved across the world, people move, they don't stay in the same house. So I'm trying to get them used to it a little bit, and my older one says, can't we just pick it up and move it? Trust me, I put my heart and soul. I actually sat on the kitchen counter and put up the backsplash myself. I would like to move the house, but I can't, I'll never feel fully, I never felt 100% secure, but I'll never feel that secure again, and I can't do that to us again, so it would be in the center. It hardly answers your question, but those are my thoughts about it.
We have another question right here.
Deborah, we're so grateful to you for sharing your story.
Thank you.
And I'm wondering, what what messages would you like all of us to share as we leave, having heard your story? What do you want us to tell others?
Well, that's a good one. You didn't let me prepare for that. I mean, I guess, not to toot my horn, because I sure have breakdowns, but I guess Israelis are strong, the country is strong. Nobody's going to put their tail between their legs and go to sleep. Most nobody. And we'll get through it, but we do need the help of the world, like education. We do need to spread the word to, so just coming and hearing me and encouraging other people to come, and if anyone knows any churches, I'd be happy to go. High schools, I'd be happy to go. I think that's very important. Just to spread the word and support.
And I'd just like to say from personal experience that if anyone has an opportunity to go on a volunteer mission, Israel really needs us. And the gratitude that you hear, you don't do it for the gratitude, but it's really inspiring and heartwarming to see what you can do in just a few days.
Yeah,
Could you suggest a couple of the volunteer missions going out?
Sure, we can send that when we follow up with everyone, we can share that. Because there's many. It's
They
really
are very
whatever
grateful.
works for you.
Yeah, the Israelis are very grateful for the people helping and coming in. Yeah.
Any other questions before we? Okay.
I can project. So when you're speaking to like you said you were speaking to college campuses last week, what if you were to suggest like one narrative that we could help push with that age group, or what kind of question are you getting that, because they're probably asking all, I don't know exactly what population you're speaking to, but what can you suggest that we can use to help with some of these kids, especially teenagers who are feeling that angstiness about, is it still okay to support Israel? Like, this is bad. I'm seeing all this bad stuff. All my friends say it's bad. It's not,
So, first, the campuses I spoke at, I was speaking at Chabad or Hillel. For several reasons. I'm a little concerned about my personal safety to do a campus-wide thing. I don't have a bodyguard. Or a way, I'm saying I'm busy and crazed is beyond, I didn't get to pluck my eyelashes today. All I wanted to do today was I'm feeling, if someone could set it up, I'd go. If someone could set it up and give security, I would go. But that's all I have is the Chabad and Hillel so far. So my answer to you would be a little different because I knew I was speaking to a room of Chabad or Hillel. But I know that they have friends and they have people who are not supportive. And again, this is just kind of my personal opinion, but I think one of the main problems that's happening is everyone. They're equating freedom fighters with like the regular Palestinian. This isn't about land. This isn't about occupation. This isn't about a two-state solution. That's like another issue. But this was a genocide. I had a high school tell me, I don't know if you can come speak. We have to respect both sides. I won't name names. A high school very close to here. And I said, but with all due respect, that's the problem. This doesn't have another side. It's telling a Holocaust survivor you have to hear the other side. Get a terrorist. I'm happy for you to come have the other side. Here's the survivor, here's the terrorist, because that's the other side. And I feel like that's the main thing that has to be educated right now is like put your two-state solution thing aside and just look at what happened. These are terrorists. ISIS condemned Hamas. ISIS condemned Hamas for what they did to women and children. I mean, hello. And then how do we do that? I mean, that's why I like to have the Palestinian videos, because again, it's like, don't just listen. There's a problem with social media where it keeps showing you what you want to hear. And so those people the supporters just keep getting the same. And somehow they have to branch out and hear and just see the real things and think for themselves, which isn't happening. So I don't have one great answer, but my main focus would be please try to separate, terrorists and a inhumane massacre to like whatever cause for, a two-state solution, free Palestine. It's getting way too, that would be my. And really, if anyone does happen to want to get me onto a full campus, let me know, because I'm not against it, it just hasn't worked out. And get me a bodyguard.
Well, unless anyone
was just fantastic.
Well, I want to thank you so much for coming today. I also just want to thank you guys all for coming. It was an amazing turnout. We did not expect such a large group, so thank you so much. Obviously, Deborah is around. She has to rush out today because she's got a babysitter. But we will be sending an email with all the links and stuff with all the information that Deborah provided. Probably tomorrow or in the next, let's give us 48 hours, but sometime in the next 24 to 48 hours.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you.
And keep a lookout. Inside Schechter will have a recording hopefully of today so you can share it with friends and stuff. And we have lots of programming and events coming up in the near future, so keep a lookout for those. And one last thing, we do have an exhibit out here. This exhibit right outside the room here is 14 photos of 50 that were part of an exhibit in Tel Aviv that was done right after October 7th. It shows kind of social media posts and graphic design work that was done for kind of what we just talked about, the atrocities and what happened. So it just gives you a small glimpse of many photos, but it's really a unique opportunity that we're able to present those today, and there's more of a description with that. So take a minute to look at that, and thank you all so much for being here tonight.